This is Sway.
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 In the morning.
In the morning.
In the morning.
Shade 45.
Wake your punk ass up. That crust out your eyes.
Shade 45, Sway in the morning. You know, it's been a few folks who have created platforms over the years, have to be that has helped the likes of some of our favorite artists, whether it's Notorious B.I.G. or Nas or Jigga, you name them. This person was important to their development in their careers. And he's someone who's helped King Tech and I along the way as we started our world famous Wake Up Show platform, which became the largest syndicated hip hop show on mainstream radio of its kind.
Right.
And through relationships and, you know, and inside perks, if you will, we were able to separate ourselves from a lot of other shows that claim to be the biggest and the best in the past, in the history. And we made a lot of friends along the way. One of our friends started off in the music business, and then he created a marketing agency and promotion agency called Cornerstone, and he became a fuel behind a movement called Fader, and he's in along the way has helped out a lot of people in their careers, helped out a lot of labels, break a lot of artists. And he's someone who I can honestly say I saved his life at one point. And he's here with us today, the one and only Rob Stone, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey.
What's up, Rob Stone?
Everything's good, Sway. Thanks for having us up. It's always a pleasure.
It's a celebratory occasion. Fader magazine is officially approaching its 100th issue, which deserves a gigantic round of applause.
Yes, thank you.
How many years has it been?
16 years.
16 years. Wow. And then you brought your team along with you?
Yeah, we have an incredible team. We got the editor-in-chief who's running the show, Naomi Zeichner, is here, and Joseph Patel, who's head of content.
Joseph Patel, someone I worked with over at MTV for years. How many years we worked together, Joe?
6 years.
6 years. And we were able to create some of the biggest franchises around hip-hop MTV has ever seen. And then he went on and started working for all sorts of people. I can't even name all the jobs he had, but now he ended up with Rob Stone, and that's not a place to end up. That's a place to go forward, right?
I agree.
All right, cool. How do you sucker you into that job? Nah, this is a big occasion. Naomi, how long you been working with Fader now?
You know, I started at Fader as an intern in 2010.
2010, and now you're the editor-in-chief?
Get it? Case, yeah.
Damn, how many coffees did you bring, Rob? How did you do this?
You know, not a damn one yet.
Yeah?
No, Rob is, you know, Rob's been amazing. Fader is an amazing place to launch a career. I really think that, like, it's a magazine where people... where you have the opportunity to teach yourself incredible things. And I think that's been the case for me. And, you know, going into our 100th issue, a big, you know, hope for us is that we're still a platform for sort of emerging journalists to really do their best work, to do their most rigorous work. So really proud of the issue that we made. What is
the now, like, how has the mission statement changed from the beginnings to now? What would you say Fader's mission is today?
You know, I think in some ways it's still the same, right? It's just to be like the definitive source for emerging music and the culture that surrounds it. And I think we're very true to that core mission. I think today we care, you know, the world has changed a lot, right? Like when Fader started, Twitter didn't exist, iPhones didn't exist. And I think a big part of this issue is realizing that our role is much bigger now. Like, you know, we didn't used to work with the biggest pop superstars in the world. You know, I think Fader's core mission used to really be about introducing brand new people. And we still do that, right? Like the issue 99, Kehlani is on the cover.
Kehlani from the Bay.
From the Bay.
Oh, you did that, huh? You did that?
I wrote that story.
Okay, okay.
That's my girl.
Okay.
But you know, I think that we know that right now we have the responsibility because we've gotten good at what we do to contextualize these huge stories and to kind of take on these bigger challenges. So.
How did y'all adjust to the digital age? Like, you guys offered an issue on iTunes before, right?
We were
actually the first to do that, right?
Absolutely, we were the first to offer the issue at iTunes. I think what's really interesting too about the team is how much it's evolved, and like you know, from the early days of when John and I started the magazine with Lee Harrison, the edit team evolves and. You know, John and I are smart enough to get out of the way and let like the youngins do what the youngins are supposed to do, and they do an incredible job. And you could see it from you know being first with Kanye to Travis Scott to Nicki Minaj, Drake's first cover, to the 100th issue with Drake and Rihanna on the cover now. It's an impressive lineage of what we've done.
How do you manage the conversation has changed, Naomi. Say for example the Drake article, and everybody wanted to hear his take on what happened between the battle with Meek and Drake. What was your thought process? And he gave you guys a really great interview, and he walked you through his thought process. And then the subject of lyrics came up, which I think it's become a generational thing. Heather, maybe you want to chime in on this, what people feel like the rules, if you will, are when it comes to writing lyrics, and Drake pretty much said, I'm not trying to put this in context for you. I'm not even trying to explain this to you. I'm paraphrasing, but if somebody helps trigger some thought, I'm gonna run with it. I don't see nothing wrong with it. And there's still a lot of people who feel totally different, even though it's his music, he can do whatever he wants to do. Are you guys able to interject, your opinions on it? And if so, what is your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I wrote something when that happened and kind of just said that for me, this doesn't scandalize me, right? This doesn't change my opinion of Drake. I think I really respected in that interview, first of all, that he brought that conversation up, right? It was something, of course, that we were going to ask about, but it wasn't an issue that we had to press. It was something that he was very sort of excited to talk about. And I think also, right, that he said none of what I've done happens without me. And I think that's absolutely true. And I think that for me, that's what matters most. I think that we don't bat an eyelash when pop producers, pop songwriters make songs by committee, make amazing songs and give them to the world. And I think that, the intricacies of Drake's songwriting process are sort of for him. But I think that what we tried really hard to do in the story was to really break down sort of scientifically what makes him so engaging, what makes those songs so sticky. And I think that he really made a strong case for how he gets that in that pocket and gets that flow that kind of makes a song like Hotline Bling so special. And I think he proved that, what he said, that nothing that he does happens without him, ultimately. And I think there's just nothing wrong with trying to make the best song.
Okay. I think Diddy feels the same way. But Rob, you knew Notorious B.I.G.
Yes.
How do you feel about it? If you found out that Big was saying lyrics that other folks referenced,
well,
hypothetically.
I wrote a lot of Big's lyrics.
I thought that. Yeah. I saw that. But him going down as the greatest. If Clark Kent was here, what would Clark Kent say?
I don't know what Clark would say. I know that it is the most inspiring time in your life when you could be around a guy like Notorious B.I.G. because he saw things differently. He expressed himself differently. He didn't want to do what everybody else was doing. And you could see his influence on everyone around him, from Kim to Little C's to other artists. To I remember the first time we walked him into KMEL when you were on the air, and there's just like a respect level that he had, and that's for a reason. So for me though, I've also seen him laugh at a situation, and then next thing you know, that situation was in his rhyme. So I don't know if I think what Naomi's saying is right. I think it's about the artistry.
This is the first time we walked in was that the first time we walked in KMEL? What year was that?
94.
94.
Amazing.
Can that look at you? Yeah, you got Chewy Gomez, who is still in the Bay, Alex Mejia, Rob Stone right here. And
Sway still looks the same.
20
20 years later.
20 years later, man. Well, I looked a little older back then. Okay, Joseph Patel is here too. What are your thoughts on that, Joe? We did Hottest MCs together. A big part of that was lyricism.
I think you look younger now than you did before.
Thank you, Joe. Good. You can leave now, man. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what Naomi said, I think, when...
Is it Naomi or Naomi?
It's either.
Either? Okay.
Yeah.
What do you like?
I think Naomi.
Naomi?
Probably,
Okay.
Naomi, that's what, yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, Rob Stone.
Like when a songwriter, like a Taylor Swift or somebody, has a songwriter's camp that puts together stuff, that she picks the best of the best and makes a song, no one bugs out on that. And I think
she's a pop artist.
I think hip hop has evolved to the point where, like Drake's not just rapping, he's making songs. And I think it's evolved. Hip hop overall has evolved to the point where it does require that much creative input, right? Drake isn't Drake without 40 and the rest of his team, right? And I think and I also think kids today just don't care the way that we used to care when we came up, right? With lyrics. Yep. And I think Meek is from that school where you write your own lyrics, right? And I think he thought there was going to be a reaction against Drake that just didn't happen. And I actually think it's really interesting. Like Meek is in a crew where some of those people in his crew don't write their own lyrics, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I almost feel like...
Which people in this crew?
I'm not going to say. You and I both know that.
Which people in this crew, Joseph? I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Which people was it?
Yeah. I'm not going to say out of respect for our friends.
Okay, well, that's coming from Joseph Patel, one of the original hottest MC pundits here. Go ahead, Tracy.
I have a question when it comes to the journalism world, because maybe like 10 years ago, people used to just be very territorial with their titles. You know, a journalist would never want to be confused with a blogger. And now I feel like a lot of folks just lump it all together and think the terms are synonymous. So for you guys, is there a difference in the definition of a blogger, a writer, and a journalist?
I think that's a great question. I think a big thing at Fader, sort of since my time there, when the internet was really becoming a big part of what Fader did, everybody touched print and everybody touched web. That was really important. A lot of like websites used to call themselves magazines and have no print magazine, right? Like our print magazine was first, but online we always functioned truly like a magazine. Everything got edited, everything, you know, stories were concepted weeks out, things like that. So I think right now, right, we have a bigger staff. So there's sort of like, there's more levels, there's staff writers, there's people who edit some, there's people who edit more. I think for me, the big distinction that I see, you know, I worked for a moment at BuzzFeed, which is an online only place that does a lot of really substantial things, right? So it's not about the paper, right? It's not, I think having a print schedule means that we're really accountable for having to have, a certain amount of excellent stories every year. But I want to make excellent stories for web, and I want to make sure that everybody who works at Fader is learning how to do that stuff. But the big distinction now is like who can edit and who can't. I think it's a skill that a lot of people are out here hustling, writing amazing stuff, learning reporting, but people don't always learn those sort of reporting standards, and people really don't always learn how to edit. And I think there's just like not a lot of those mentors out here necessarily to teach those skills. It's a slow skill. It takes a long time to learn. So it's one of the reasons I was really thankful to come up at Fader, that I got to soak that up.
Okay. Damn. Okay. All right. I guess it's time. We're gonna. Naomi's here. Rob Stone's here. Fader Magazine 100th issue celebration. You want to speak with any of them about this world? 888-742-3345. Here's one of my favorite Drake songs of all time, right here. Say what's real, Rob. Say it, man.
Why do I?
Way in the morning, 745. Rob Stone is here. Naomi Zeichner. Is here from Fader Magazine. They're celebrating the 100th issue.
That's dope.
Which is amazing because there's not many folks that can say that. That's like being in syndication with a TV show for 7 years.
Hit that 100 episode and then just start partying.
You just start partying now, especially in this digital age where most magazines fell at the wayside because they couldn't transition into this digital age. You guys found a comfortable balance between online and offline. Are you, for the 100th issue, are you going to do a limited edition, or is it, how many does it affect how many you actually press up now? Or?
We're actually pressing more. And since we announced them the last week with Drake and the Rihanna issue, they've been selling incredibly well on the Fader.com. So we actually pressed more for the 100th issue.
I'm happy you guys got that interview with him because I almost don't, I understand why a lot of artists don't like doing a lot of interviews anymore. It's horrible, and I don't even feel bad if they don't come here because of it, even though we practice something different, I like to think on this platform. But people are using these artists for clickbait.
Yeah.
And so Naomi, how do you guys manage? Because you got to have that alluring, that drawing headline. How important is the headline, and how do you manage that? Is this clickbait just to get people to build up our metrics, or is this really a story that we want to tell or should be told? How do you manage that as editor-in-chief?
I think it's really difficult, and I think sometimes it's really hard to tell whether you have a story here or you just have some information, right? But in the case of the Drake story, I think it was really important. The pitch that we made to them when we said we want you on the cover for this 100th issue is that you're an icon of the culture that Fader was a part of building, that Fader honors, Fader celebrates, and that was always going to be the bottom line with the story, right? Is that whatever it was about, right? And when we pitched that cover, the Meek Mill shit hadn't happened, the whole summer hadn't happened. But Drake's been having an incredible year, has had an incredible career. And so the bottom line was just like, let's define why we care about you so much and why we feel like you're so central. And so I think we tried to use all these events to really understand what they show about him. And that was the promise we made. And I think that made for a great story.
I agree. I've had a chance to sit and talk with him off record without getting into too much of the conversation, like for hours at a time. And one of the things I found really fascinating about him that you pointed out in this article is he's extremely aware of everything. Right? You know, he's aware of what's going on with his fans, with your fans, technology, fashion, trends, the whole nine. Did that who did that? Did you do the interview?
I didn't. His name is Leon Nafok. He's incredible.
Okay, well, Leon, you killed it, dog. Does that impress you? Like, have you seen another artist? Like artists, some have it and then they lose it, but very seldom do they sustain it for as long as he's had. I think Jay has done that over the years. Yep. Right? Jay-Z has done that, but nobody's done it quite like Drake in this era. What do you think?
I mean, in this era, probably not. I think Kendrick is probably, he's had a great run and it's still really relevant. I think as far as artists like a Kanye, I love Kanye and what he means to the culture and how he pushes people and he pushes the media and he pushes himself. And I think that's an incredible talent, and I think Drake, in his own way, absolutely is extremely sophisticated in how he sees things.
I think J. Cole too has created an alternative existence where he ain't in headlines, he ain't in this bullshit. Yep. He doesn't even go to the award shows, and his album he sold over 1 million records, a million albums quietly that no one's even talking about. Like, I don't think any other rapper other than Drake has done that, right? In the past, sold over 1 million.
Probably not.
Damn, we got Fader in us here. Nobody got that. JP, anybody? Damn, look that
up. Gotta look though.
Somebody gotta look that up.
But Lil Wayne as well. Lil Wayne is one of the most prolific rappers, and I think that he taught Drake a lot. Because remember, he sold 1 million back then too.
This is true.
And let's talk about Nicki for a second.
Nicki Minaj. Okay, Nicki Minaj.
You know, and these are artists when they go out on tour that just can like really do those numbers and kind of connect with people because they have that talent. They know what their fan base is, right? And it means something to be with them or something. I mean, Drake talks about this in the story that he hears you. Like he's not trying to help his fans. He's trying to hear them. And that's why they connect with the songs so much because they can hear themselves in those songs. And I think that's, whether that's lyricism or whatever you want to call it, that's a skill, you know?
That's a skill,
that's a career making skill.
Naomi, I'm going to try to perfect mine. In the footsteps of Drake. It's important that we learn from those who come after us. That's how you don't want to become a fossil, a prehistoric Rob Stone. You want to become a Allosaurus, a Stegosaurus, a Brontosaurus, any saurus.
You lost me, Sway. Yeah. You lost me. You lost me somewhere in the saurus.
Okay, hold on, man. I got Mike on the line from Reno. He got a question for you, Naomi. Michael, what's your question?
Yo, hey, so I'm on my way to class. I'm a journalist at the University of Nevada, and I just wanted to hear your thoughts on the difference between the processes a blogger goes through to get their interviews and the processes a journalist goes through, and how there has to be a difference between the two.
I don't know that there does have to be a difference between the two. I mean, I think if you're just trying to get an interview, I would recommend trying to go through the official channel, whoever you're supposed to be talking to. I think a big thing is you don't need to get a selfie afterwards. You don't need to be that person's friend when you talk to them. You want to treat them with respect and ask a question that matters. But, I think ultimately you should be trying to get an interview that reveals something interesting to you, something that you didn't know about the artist, that other people don't know about the artist. And not so worried on the back end. You don't want to sort of make any mess that you don't need to make, but you don't need to make friends either.
Yeah, we work in a cesspool of, you bring up a good point about, when it used to be taboo, like you didn't have a lot of journalists that were friends with the artists because then that friendship can taint put a slant on how you report about them. But now, so you want to talk on this? Because you were like one of the first journalists to become friends with artists. But don't you? It's a difference now, right? Like you. It's more important for these journalists to become friends with artists than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, but I think it speaks to what you were talking about before. Is there's a lot of quote unquote journalists or a lot of media outlets that are trying to get access right? They're not trying to write the story. They're just trying to get access.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things I'm proud about the Fader team is that we want to get the story. You know, in the history of the Fader, in the 100 covers, there's no artist has ever had approval on the story or the photos before we went to print.
Talk about it.
Which is unparalleled in the media industry.
Damn, that's so Kanye, Nicki,
Nobody.
no one.
Nobody. We've had
They fight over it, but yeah,
Fights over,
yeah.
like,
Constant
yes, no.
fight.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that for a moment. We did a story on Drake, and they respected us enough to A, do the story, his only interview for the year, and B, not have photo approval or story approval before it went to print. Same with Rihanna. Same with everybody who's ever been on the cover of the Fader, which I personally think is unprecedented.
Yeah, I agree. Joseph Patel, ladies and gentlemen. Listen, while we have you here, and Naomi, I know you up on the pulse of things. We do Celebrity Wire, so I want to get y'all take on some of these stories in Celebrity Wire while we got them here. All right. Naomi Zeichner is leaving. She's leaving, but how can people pick up the magazine if they want to get it? Or
So if you go to either of the stories on thefader.com, there's pre-order links at the bottom, or shop.thefader.com, so you can get it right now.
Can I have the one you brought?
So we don't. Yeah, no, they're not. We have
Damn,
all
you're gonna
of these.
leave and you're not gonna
We have
let
all
me
of
get
these
the one.
no, but we ship the issue to the printer. You know, it's hot on the internet just after we ship to the printer, so we'll have it in a couple weeks. But you can pre-order them now.
Rob, does our friendship mean nothing to you, man?
You just talked about them friends, Sway. Come on.
I got T-shirts here.
Rob,
All
you
right,
came with
what
gifts,
stories
Rob.
you got? What stories you got, Tracy?
Oh man, the kid of LL Cool J, his son, who's 26 years old, was arrested earlier today after he was thrown out of a restaurant. It looks like he was just celebrating his birthday. It happened on Monday. Apparently, he was intoxicated. Of course, that happens on your B-Day. But he caused quite a disturbance to the point where he had to be escorted out. They're even saying that he was fighting. He was taking some really curious photos of himself sitting on the toilet and then having sex. And now he has been cuffed and is behind bars. Happy 26th birthday, kiddo.
This is LL's son.
Yeah, Najee Smith.
I'm not going to comment on that.
I mean,
Don't comment.
no, I just have one thing to say. You know, if you think about it, when LL was 23, he was 7 years into his career, which is crazy to think about,
Yeah,
right?
Oh,
that's a
wow.
good point. And his son is
26.
26.
26.
So he was 10 years into his career.
Yeah,
Like, that's crazy to think about.
that is
That was a
crazy.
good flip.
I'm on to wait to see how this pans out because LL is an icon in itself, arguably one of the greatest of all time.
He bigger than you.
He's what you mean physically?
Yeah.
So I'm not going. And we have never heard of any incident of any of his children in the public
Public eye.
eye like this. So I want to see what happens. You say he was taking pictures
On the toilet.
Okay, yeah,
Having
I'm not
sex.
gonna touch
Doing
that.
it,
Shit
and
it in
doing it, and
sexing.
doing it well.
Really, Heather?
Doing it,
Really?
doing it. They
Really?
probably was killing that shit in the background. I represent Queens. She was raised out in Brooklyn. That shit was probably hot. Get him, Najee.
Yeah.
You 26. Wild out. I mean, come on.
Okay. Next story, Tracy.
All right. Well,
Go
we
for
were
that,
arguing
Heather.
about this earlier during the day because a young thug, he's no stranger to dibbling and dabbling in the female closet. And he was doing an interview with GQ magazine. And he was talking about just why he loves wearing women's clothes so much. He said because the jeans are a much slimmer fit. It makes him feel like a rock star. However, he does wear male briefs, male T-shirts, but 90% of his clothing is female.
Joseph Patel, does that make him a cross-dresser?
I don't know if you can put Young Thug into any category. He's free form.
Wow, that's a good. This dude is good, Heather. This is you're witnessing one of the best right here.
Okay.
You didn't put somebody's
This is the
publicist.
person behind the curtain. Once you go down the yellow brick road and you go, this is the
That's
person.
him.
All right.
That's
Me and Sway spent 6 years all around the country dancing around just like this,
Okay.
around issues and topics and relationships. So
He knows the.
okay.
I
He
learned
knows
from
the
the
code.
best.
He knows the
All right.
code. All right. No, one other story. Go ahead. Tracy.
Okay, real quick. Azealia Banks, because she's such a quote monster. And I think it was maybe a week and a half ago where she was on a flight and she ended up getting into an argument. She dropped the F-bomb. I'm not talking about fuck. And now she's on Twitter explaining herself. She said, LGBT community are like the gay white KKKs. get some pink hoods and unicorns and rally down Rodeo Drive. She ended up deleting it. Rodeo Drive.
I'm just trying to tell her. I'm just trying to,
Tracy
I'm here for different reasons.
Yeah.
Right. Clearly, I'm not getting paid enough to understand the pronunciation of that.
She's never been on Rodeo
Drive. Yeah, so she said, all I had to do was say one word and I moved the whole community. What weaklings? Yeah, so obviously those tweets caused quite a wildfire.
Yeah. So what about her music? Do we care as much about her music anymore, Joseph Patel? Azalea Banks?
I mean, who?
Oh, that's Azalea Banks, man. Did y'all used to say fag, Rob, when you was growing up? Oh, you fag.
I don't remember saying it.
You don't?
I don't remember.
You won't rule it out? No, when we were little, growing up in Oakland, we used to say, "Oh, fag, go get the ball."
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like, if you whined or something, "Oh, fag, quit whining." But we didn't know.
It wasn't. You weren't mean spirited by it.
We didn't know anything about like being homosexual or that being a derogatory term or anything. We were just young kids that said that.
Right.
I mean, I think. I grew up in the Bay as well.
Yeah.
It was the most insulting thing you could say to somebody, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't know better then, both culturally, socially, and personally.
Yeah.
People should know better now.
Yeah. Like if you cracked I'll give you an example. Joseph Patel, before I ever even got on Twitter, started a Twitter account for me.
Oh yeah. That was great.
And was shitting on like every MTV.
No, that's not true.
Okay.
The Twitter account I started, this is before you were on Twitter and we were working together at MTV. I started a fake Sway Calloway Twitter and I tweeted the same thing every day for a year and a half. What up, world? It's your boy Sway. That was it every day.
No, I saw something about Carson. You dissed Carson.
Never.
Carson called me.
The same thing for a year and a half.
And then when I found out it was him, I said, "You fag," and then we just laughed about it.
Okay. But that's not
Everybody's so scared to say fag.
No, it's not the people that are scared to say it, but like he said, you didn't know when you were younger, and now if you're not gay, you don't really care. Do you? Like if somebody call you say you acting like a faggot, do people care?
Can't make assumptions, man. You already know what line you can
here
go
come
down.
them flag. All right.
It's true. You can't.
But I really would like to see Azalea got a movie coming out with that she did with the RZA that's going to come out next year, and she's playing a lead role in it. I would really like to get back to her music, hear what she's doing musically. When she came out, she was so progressive minded. When 212 came out, we were all like, "Oh shit." Jay, Kanye, all these folks was like, wow, this about to be something. And then now we don't even talk about the music.
Some people just don't need to be on Twitter, man.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
Yeah.
Or some delay button or something.
Right. All right, Joseph, thank you for coming by, man.
Hey, can I just say thank you for having us, but can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
So one, it's an honor to be here because I was a real big fan of Heather's when I was doing college radio back in the day.
I appreciate that.
And I actually know for a fact Sway used to play your records on the radio because I used to listen to Sway Show on the Wake Up Show every weekend in the Bay.
Damn.
And I was telling Naomi on the way up here in the elevator a story about us working together at the DNC in 2008.
Wow.
And it was the day Obama accepted the nomination, and I was like, it was a packed stadium, and everyone was there for Obama. The second most popular person in the building was you.
Oh,
because from everyone from the janitors to the ushers to senators to John Legend to everybody in Obama's team knew who you were, said what's up. And the thing I was telling Naomi is, you treat everyone you meet, you give them a moment. And I think that's a skill and a talent, but it's also, I think, says a lot about your character. So
damn shit.
There you go.
Joseph, man.
That was dope. Thank you for sharing.
You also saved my life. True story.
True story, man. True story. Dude, I won't even tell the story, but true story, right?
A true story.
Yeah, man. I'm proud of y'all, man. Congratulations. And keep up the excellent work. The culture needs it. The culture needs it. And, let's not get lost in, progression at the same time. Let's remember some of the fundamentals that got us here,
still
right?
mad about that Drake answer?
No, not at all. Not at all. Love Drake. I think he's extreme. Him, J. Cole,
Kendrick.
The front runners. Kendrick.
Yeah.
Truthfully, Kendrick is thinks like I think, a thought. Like more of what Kendrick does and J. Cole does is probably how I thought growing up as a young man, you know. And I just think Drake is just a superior songwriter and performer as a whole, you know. But on some hip hop shit, separate from whatever the generations are and all that stuff, you know, MCs were always what we prided ourselves in. It was our own individual, unique way of expressing ourselves, and that's what you got the props and credit from. Well, he wrote that. Rakim wrote that. That's only he could bring that. Kane wrote that. Kendrick wrote that. That's what Meek was saying. That's what, you know. So if it's different times and different strokes for different folks, cool. But I have my way of feeling about things too. That's all, man.
So he addressed it in the article.
Yes, he did, and he addressed it in a great way.
That's right.
It made a lot of sense to me.
And it was a lot different than I think most MCs would have expressed somebody attacking them.
Absolutely. And the fact that he came back with back to back,
and he wrote it,
and he wrote that, he gets a hyena. I always said, even when him and Common was going at it, I was like, y'all gonna wake up a sleeping giant, you know. And I guess Meek woke up the sleeping giant.
Didn't you used to write lyrics for Debbie Deb? Right? Isn't that like
Debbie Deb? Yeah,
right,
not Debbie Deb. Debbie Deb.
Debbie Deb back in the day. But how is that
Funky
different?
music, quick DJs.
How's that different though?
People don't look at females the same.
She's a pop. It's pop and rap. It's two different things. Like it's even R&B singers are rap. Y'all know it's different.
I do want to say this because I want to give him a moment.
It's different though.
Sway
for MCs.
My favorite MC for that reason. Rest in peace to Sean Price.
Sean Price.
And to me, that guy wrote, go listen to his records because he wrote it. He didn't care what anybody else was doing. He made records that he wanted to make. And, you know, one of the great MCs, like my favorite MC is Sean Price.
Wow, Rob Stone, ladies and gentlemen. That's dope, man. Y'all gotta come back, man. Just don't hang out.
Anytime.
Joe, you know I love.
We've caused some trouble.
We've created some important platforms for culture and TV. And Rob, we've done some excellent work along the way. Continued success to Cornerstone Fader magazine, and I hope to have y'all back.
It's Sway in the morning, only on Shade 45. Kilo.